Hello there, Gav here. Welcome to Gas It Out. A quick warning before we get going with the podcast proper. Bradley's first words are bluer than a Rocco Siffredi film. And if you don't know who that is and what kind of films he makes, then it's probably best you don't listen too intently. I'm recording this intro a week on from actually speaking to Bradley with Neil. Apologies for the delay in getting this out there. Between preparing for the season, obviously that's about to start, house renovations, my garden's upside down. We've had a digger in the garden, which was particularly exciting. It's been the girlfriend's birthday, yada, yada. Some bits of the podcast maybe a touch out of date. We know now, for example, that Fabio Quartararo is one of those being hauled in front of the stewards for testing a bike a bit too similarly prepared to his M1. But the whole conversation about pre-season preparations and all that still stands. And of course, we are building up to the start of the MotoGP season where Bradley Smith in this reveals for the first time that I've heard that he is definitely going to be racing at Jerez for the first two races, at the very least, maybe for the whole season, depending on what happens with Andrea Iannone. And we talk about that a little bit in the podcast. His hearing, his appeal, and WADA's actually appealed to on his 18-month ban. Still hasn't had a date set up for a hearing at CAS. I've been and checked with the Court for Arbitration for Sport. As things stand, he's still on an 18-month ban until next year. So Bradley could have the whole year. We're excited anyway that he's going to be out and that MotoGP's going to get going because we will have every minute of it on BT Sport if you are in the UK. As per usual, just chuck that one in there. Remember, you'll be able to watch this conversation with Bradley as a video pod. I believe they call it a vodcast on YouTube. I'm sure I'll make it onto Facebook too. We might set up a Gas It Out Facebook page too, where we can chat directly with you lot. Would you like that? We could do that next, couldn't we? When I get a moment, because I am very busy. We've got another couple of conversations already in the can with the ever-charming Sylvain Guintoli and MotoGP's favourite larrikin, Jack Miller. And they will be coming very soon. But for now, sorry for the long intro. Here's Bradley. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another Gas It Out. I'll look at the camera. That's how you're supposed to do these things. I can't even speak. Professional. Neil Hodgson joining me. Neil, you look like you just got out of bed.
I know.
Actually,
I
are you
haven't.
paying attention as well?
No, I'm
texting.
I'm
Morning,
texting Bradley.
We're trying to start a podcast. And
no, I know, but
I can see
we are
Neil.
we're speaking to Bradley, and I'm just checking that. I'm saying, so you're good to join at 1 your time.
For those of you who are just listening to this, I've got Neil dictating that to Vic, who is writing his text messages for him.
Hey, it's our anniversary today, Gav.
Cup of tea. Oh, what a lucky lady! How did you get to spend
anniversary?
Seeing me and Bradley on your computer.
Well, Victoria loves you, and she's a massive Bradley Smith fan. It's just the highlight of her day.
What dreams are made of, isn't it, to get this? Well, congratulations to you both. How long
7 years.
Now? 3 weeks? Oh,
7 years, and she's managed to put up with me. I can't believe it.
Blimey. Yeah.
Guess what she got me? I bought her our favourite winery in South Africa. I got her favourite wine from there. I bought 6 bottles as a surprise. And she's bought me some of them ear pods, but I'm buds or whatever they call them. You know, there's ones where you've not got a cable.
Right, okay. I see that you've employed them straight away.
No, well, I've plugged it.
He hasn't, by the way. He's got proper old school ones.
Old school. So I'm charging them up. But it's got my name on. The little case has got Neil on.
Oh, it got World Champion 2003 on the other
one. In gold.
Without a doubt. Thanks everybody for joining us once more. Really great to hear from a few of you. Good to see that you've enjoyed us being back. A little bit of news while we just look ahead to the MotoGP season. A couple of riders are going to be called up in front of the stewards for testing inappropriately. So maybe using machines too close to their own. I'm not sure. Maybe private testing when they're not supposed to be. We don't quite know the details of it. But obviously that's going to be quite a key thing, isn't it? just thinking ahead of the season, who's been able to get in practice time, who hasn't, who's got that feeling back? Because you're going to have to hit the ground running, aren't you, as soon as you get to Jerez?
Absolutely. I'm assuming it'll be Moto2 riders because they're the riders that can basically test bikes really close to what they race.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if a Moto3 rider's been out on his Moto3 bike, he's in trouble, isn't he? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but, but the likelihood of getting all that together and getting one out there is unlikely. Moto2, however, we've seen it before. Do you remember? Tito Rabat pretty much had a spec bike down in Almeria, didn't he, back in the day? Before all this was brought in for Moto2 and Moto3. And I don't think they're actually supposed to be testing at all, aren't they? I think they're allowed to obviously go out and ride a bike. But in terms of they're not even allowed to do official tests or private tests or anything like that, I don't think.
Well, they changed the rules for Tito Rabat, really, because what happened was he moved the goalposts. It was always a very fast rider coming up through the ranks. And then he basically went to live at a race circuit up in Almeria, in the middle of nowhere, really. The track's in the middle of nowhere. Parked his motorhome there and rode every day. I used to go to that track with Focus Events doing track days, and Tito would ride every morning, every lunchtime, and in the evening. And it clearly gave him an advantage. So
yeah, so that's what I was going to ask about this in terms of advantages gained from this sort of thing. Valentino Rossi riding an R1M around. We've also seen other riders out on different street bikes. Okay, I can't think off the top of my head because I'm stupid like that. A lot of them doing motocross, but we see people out on Misano. We've seen them out on circuits in Spain and what have you. So, in terms of advantages from doing that, I'd have said very negligible. But in Moto2, definite advantage to be gained.
Yeah, especially like Tito did. He basically, at one point, he was riding his race bike. Then they stopped him from doing that. And then he was riding as close to the race bike as possible. And yeah, that was an advantage. But like you said, for MotoGP riders, the one I'm really confused about, and I've not ridden one yet, is the mini bikes that they ride. These like little ovales.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alex Loza's got one, Sam's got one. They all ride.
Oh, I've seen them all out in Andorra. Johan Zarco was there in Andorra.
Yeah.
They opened that track, didn't they, in Andorra? And a lot of those riders who were based up there, I've seen Jorge Martin going around the circuit, and a few others around there in Andorra. I think the Espargaro brothers were out. You think that's very close to MotoGP level, isn't it? Those bikes. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. What do you learn from it? Don't get me wrong. I understand young kids riding them, but like a MotoGP rider doing loads of laps on one of them, I don't know. I'm asking the question. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's an absolute waste of time.
Maybe Bradley will know.
I don't get it.
I can't imagine him doing it.
We could ask him.
But I can imagine it being a bit of fun.
I could. You see,
bit of fun.
I could, because the way I see Bradley is the ultimate professional. So if somebody said there just might be something to gain from riding around on these, Bradley would do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way he's always been, hasn't he?
He's dedicated to the core to this and hasn't given up. And I'm sure we'll get into the possibility. Am I the only one? He hasn't been announced yet as the Aprilia rider, has he? Officially, no one said it. But his rider's gone in Moto E, definitely. Jakob Kornfeil is riding that bike. So that's definitely not happening Moto E. So clearly he's doing the Aprilia thing. But I haven't been told officially. Have you? Have you heard anything official?
No.
I haven't missed an email
or
a message or anything.
No, it's a strange one, isn't it? Obviously, the whole Aprilia thing's strange with them waiting for Iannone and all everything that's gone on.
That's why they can't say anything.
I don't even know when's the tribunal number 3 coming up. When's that one?
It's going to Court for Arbitration for Sport, and so that's taking it to another level. WADA or the other side are coming back and counter-claiming against the claim. So that's just going to rumble on. That's not going to happen before the start of the season. So,
right.
Bradley's probably going to have to dance around that one. Anyone waiting to hear a scoop or something like that, I can't see it happening if I'm totally honest. So,
well, what we'll do, we'll see what he says when he ends the conversation. We'll fill in the blanks.
Just keep recording.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Stitch him up.
That. You can do that, can't you?
We would not do that, of course.
We would.
Yeah,
we would.
Totally. So would. The other thing.
Hang on, Gav. Just for the people, obviously at home, that can't see, sorry, the people that are listening to this, you won't be able to see this. Gav's got an Austin City what? I can't see.
Austin City Limits.
Yeah, Austin City Limits. You get that from Austin, obviously.
Yeah, it's a famous venue.
Yeah. Did they not do it in your size?
Right, is it a bit big?
It looks a bit big.
Well,
I know you've lost weight.
I've lost more than 10% of my body weight. That's why.
Have you? Whoa, here he is. It's a big shot.
This used to be tight. Anyway,
it looks baggy on you. It does. It looks baggy on you.
Yeah, sorry.
Get some new clothes.
Well, I'm blatantly going to put it all back on, aren't I? When I start traveling, traveling again. Let's make no bones about it. I was going to ask about in terms of fitness and that kind of thing. Dovey already back.
I'm fit.
Sorry, go on. Dovey already back in the gym. We've seen. Had a collarbone operation. They say he's going to be back at Jerez. What's your stance on riders doing motocross?
Well, I've got massive mixed feelings because I understand both sides. Yeah. As a racer, it's amazing. It's the best thing you can do for fitness training, for reactions, fun. It's the ultimate. It really is the ultimate. Obviously, the downsides are with motocross, it usually involves jumps. And if you get your timing wrong or if something happens, you go off to the take off and face up a jump and you get a weird kicker, all of a sudden you're over the bars and you're lying on the floor and you're in a mess. Now, if I was a team manager or a manufacturer, there is absolutely no way I would allow my riders to do any form of motocross. I wouldn't have them on motocross bikes. I'd have a complete ban, even though it's great for training, great for fitness and fun.
Right. So this is, and I can imagine riders going, well, they can't ban it. I wouldn't sign for them. I'm not going to do it if they're going to do, ban and that sort of thing. Fine. Right. But a footballer who's paid a lot of money is not allowed to ride a motorbike. Things can't go skiing, these kinds of things. Formula One drivers are banned from doing certain things. You're being paid a lot of money to be in perfect physical condition. Now, the argument will be, well, I can't be in perfect physical condition if I'm not riding a motocross bike, so on and so forth. I think you're right. From a team's point of view, why has no one done it then? Why has no one banned it?
Well, in contracts, obviously, I've seen a fair few contracts with Alex Lowe's and obviously when I race. Yeah. It is worded that, for example, he can ride motocross bikes, but he's to ask permission. He can't go on a track with loads of jumps. So, but then the problem is that creates a grey area.
Yeah, of course.
So for example, if Alex went out on a motocross bike and crashed over a jump, obviously he's not going to say, "Oh, hi guys, I've broke my leg. I came short on a double."
Yeah.
He's going to go, "Yeah, I was on a flat track bike and I've had a weird crash and I broke my leg." So.
Yeah, I just find it such a strange one that you're talking professional sport, and I completely get the argument. There are other riders who don't do motocross at all. We were talking before we got on this pod about Cal Crutchlow. There's someone who doesn't touch a motocross bike. How many times has Cal Crutchlow been injured from riding his push bike? I know there have been people who have been injured riding the push bikes. Who was it who fell? Albert Arenas, for example. But he hasn't missed a race because of that, as in Cal Crutchlow.
But, Gav, how many times are we in the paddock and you'll go, "Oh, have you heard whoever's not riding this weekend, he's broke his wrist on his mountain bike?" And I always go, "Mountain bike?"
But surely you've got a responsibility to your employer to keep yourself fit and work out fitness in another way. But I'm being devil's advocate here because I've spoken to riders who say no. Well, I'd say no. I've got to do it. But then, if you're a team, you are in the box seat here. You're the one. You're the employer, aren't you?
What you've got to understand: a motorcycle racer doesn't think he's going to fall off and hurt himself. It's this weird because if you did, you wouldn't do it and go fast. You wouldn't race bikes if you thought you were going to fall off. You've got this weird thing where it always happens to somebody else. It's like, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I'm in control. I won't be an idiot. I won't do anything stupid. But what happens if you do it a lot? And that's what happened with me. You go faster. Things get bigger. You start doing that double. Then it turns into actually, I'm really confident I can do a triple. And before you know it, you're at your limit. Something goes wrong and you're in the hospital.
And we are talking about a rider in Dovi that many people say, not world championship level motocrosser, but very decent national level, able to even push to do that sort of thing. Very good motocrosser. So there's no doubts about his ability on the bike. And yet it could be the whole of the Ducati season decided if he's unfit for the first two, who knows? He's not quite right. That could be it. Last year, after a couple of races where he was taken out or these things happened, he was taken out in Barcelona, that was the championship gone. We've got a shorter season. 25 points gone would be the end. It's a tough one, but I suppose a team manager would be the best person to get the answer on, wouldn't it? On those.
Yeah, but what a team manager will say will be what I'm saying. They'll say, yeah, we don't really, they've got to ask for our permission. The weird thing is Ducati had allowed Dovi to do the motocross race because Dovi convinced Ducati that for him,
it's the right thing.
It's really important just to get him really shot for the start of the season.
I'm going to stop you because Bradley Smith is here, and I reckon that we can ask him.
Yeah, we'll get more sense out of him.
Bradley's connecting to
I need to see what he's looking like because I want to make sure that he's looking nice and slim. He's just about to join. Yeah, because last night when I googled him, I found a picture of him where his face looks really round, so I sent it to him, and he was laughing, going, "Oh, thanks, Neil. Just what do you need? Send me that for a man who's got an eating disorder." Because I was basically going, "Oh, you look really fat in this picture."
Oh, that's good of you. Is he there, Bradley? Are you there?
I can't see him.
I'm just listening to this fucking tosser try and get himself out.
There he is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show the picture for the people at home, the picture I sent Bradley. I'm going, hey, Bradley, look at you. Look at this picture. Sorry for the people that are listening to this. But like Bradley, who's probably got about, single figures body fat, got this really round face in this picture. There he is.
I'm here.
And we know he is the least chubby person that you have ever met in your life is Bradley. So anyway, there he is. I can see Bradley now. He's popped up on our screens. Good morning, Brad. Or afternoon, I suppose it is, over there in... are you in the south of France?
I am, but it's afternoon for you now as well, so you can't say good morning either.
Yeah, it's just tripped over. You're right. As always, Bradley is right. Hey, we were having an argument here. Well, not an argument, actually. It was a cultured discussion. But about... we were just talking about Dovi breaking collarbone, and we were talking about people getting injured while motocrossing, missing races, or coming back unfit. Am I right in thinking, have you been in that situation once? Have you been injured motocrossing? Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. So start of 2015. So basically, I think it was like a week before I turned up in Sepang. I was riding, end up crashing, did all the ligaments and everything in my ankle, basically couldn't walk and turned up to the first test on crutches. So luckily it was it was my right ankle. So basically I only had to use the rear brake. So it wasn't as bad. But certainly I wasn't in the good books.
So I bet Hervé was delighted, and I've actually spoken to Hervé before, and I remember him saying how he wasn't a fan of riders motocrossing, that sort of thing. Right. So we try to put both sides of it because we understand why you guys want to do it. You want that sharpness, you want the reaction time, these kinds of things. But the other side is you're a sportsman being paid to obviously race, and if it's preventing you from doing a race in some kind of way. So from a rider's point of view, what's your take on the idea of doing dangerous sports? I know that's your career anyway, but doing dangerous sports as training.
I'm just going to go at it not from a personal point of view, but more from like a holistic point of view. So at the end of the day, pro athletes need a bigger stimulus to improve. So Joe Bloggs turns up and starts riding a motorcycle or starts playing tennis. anything that they do with that tennis ball is going to make them better. So even just playing against the wall, or footballers playing Kirby or something like that, anything is going to make them better. But as you get higher and higher up the professional ladder, it gets harder and harder to improve. And then that means that the only way to improve is to perform at 99% of what you're capable of doing. And everybody knows when you start increasing those type of intensities, even dangerous sport or not, risk factor goes up like tenfold. It's crazy if you have a look from athletic performance in terms of as soon as you start getting around that 95 to 105% of your 40-minute, maximum tolerance, the risk of injury goes up massively. That's why we see people getting injured before Olympics, having to pull out of this event and that event, just because to try and get that final little bit takes so much time and effort. The season's only 13 races. If you can start with a bit of a bang, if you can catch people on the back foot, it's the time to take full advantage. I think that Dovi's mistake was making it so public, because I think that he told everybody that he was doing it. So everyone had an opinion even prior to the accident. So when they did see the news, it was like, oh, told you so. I do get it. Maybe racing isn't one of the smartest decisions, but certainly riding motocross, riding dirt track, risk comes with anything. And at the end of the day, we haven't touched, or they won't touch a bike since Qatar. I've already had 4.5 days. I don't know, if you turned up at a track day and something happened there, would people say that was silly as well? I don't know.
Which it does, as we know. That sort of thing does happen as well. And it's a tough one. I wonder, as we were saying, if you were signing for a team, Bradley, and the team manager, say for example, you were signing for Aprilia, and Romano Obesiano or Rivola come to you and say, right, part of your contract is you're not allowed to ride motocross. How would that affect your signature, or how would that affect you wanting to be part of that team?
I always have it removed.
So that's it. It's
it's just that's not going to work for me.
Right.
Now we can come to an agreement that, for example, we use common sense, or there's no competition. I don't go and start hitting freestyle jumps, or trying to do backflips into foam pits, because I've seen riders doing that. So there's a gentleman's agreement that they kind of sign off in terms of, I will always go not on weekends. I try and go during the week when it's less busy. I'll always go to tracks that are well prepared and have good medical facilities. I'll always take a mechanic with me with a prepared bike, so I lay it out in terms of, I will try to be as professional as possible, using my best, looking after my best interests. And you have to trust me on this one, that I use it for benefit rather than going that extra step. But life's dangerous as it is. If you start looking at the flights that we take every year, the amount of times that we're driving on the road, I'm sure the statistics are higher doing some normal everyday things that we do in terms of getting injured, rather than just riding motorbikes. Listen, I think it was Cal with his thumb with the knife and cheese. Chris Froome did the same thing, cutting something inside the kitchen. What are we supposed to do? Wrap ourselves in bubble wrap and only be allowed out to ride bikes? Life happens, and risks are part of the game.
You've got to mitigate it as much as possible, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, it's a fair point. That one question we were talking before you came on. What about the mini bikes, these Ovalis and stuff? Because I've never ridden one, and I'm when I look at it, and I see a MotoGP rider riding around on one of them, and I think, surely that's not going to help you. Have you ridden them, and what's it like? Do you think there's any benefit from riding the mini bikes?
Yeah, I don't really understand it, to be honest, because you're riding something that's, first of all, they're normally two strokes. Second of all, they're not they're just not the right size. You don't ride them in the right way. They got no suspension. You're riding on little tracks. Like, I don't really see the massive benefit to it. Now, I've seen a couple like Jake Dixon. I think he's got the 150 four-stroke Supermoto, and that's a little bit better. It looks a little bit more of a more reasonable size. Certainly safer in terms of if you're going to kart tracks with walls close by, or at least you're reducing speed. Because let's be honest, riding these 450s nowadays, you're up over 80, 90 kilometers an hour with absolutely no problem at all. And walls are pretty close, so at least that keeps the speed down. But the mini bikes, I don't really understand the whole theory behind that. I'd much rather see someone out on a supermoto or out on an R1. One thing that I've seen, I saw Sam Lowe's out with us in Misano last week, riding I think he's got an R1 there. Johan Zarco joined us on the last day. Those type of things, that seems like there's a crossover. The other stuff, I do have a question mark about.
Yeah, and he's a strange. Scott Redding almost, broke his leg, didn't he? He almost ruined his BSB chances last year with a mini bike.
He did break his leg.
Yeah, he broke it, didn't he?
He did break his leg, didn't he? He cracked his femur, didn't he?
Just because you say, Bradley, because the walls are so close, it's still got that element of risk, and what you're gaining out of it. It's finding that balance, isn't it? That mitigating the risk as much as possible. We've got to talk to you, Bradley, about what's been going on with you, because as you said, you've been out testing at Misano now, and your Moto E ride's been relinquished. Jakob Corval's taken out. Now, what are you allowed to tell us? Will you be racing? Can you tell us officially? Because I don't know if I've missed it, if we've been told that you're going to be officially starting the season in Jerez. I know you've been out testing and that, but what can you tell us?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very strange in terms of how it's all handled. But I think that Speed Week knew before me that I was going to do the opening 2 races. So that's how it's gone down. I don't know how Gunther got that information before I did, or something didn't filter down to me. So anyway, I'm a test rider for Aprilia. So at any point I can be called in as a replacement. So there doesn't really need to be any official press release, because I'm just replacing someone that's unable to race at the moment. So basically I'm in for the first 2 races officially, and then it's a kind of wait and see situation from then onwards, until Andrea gets a chance to have his court appeal and get a verdict from that. Then I'll be the replacement from there. But at the moment I'll be at Jerez the first 2 races, which is exciting. And then we'll see how many races you'll see me at from then onwards.
With that though, I don't know, Gav, you might know, when is Andrea supposed to be back then?
Well, it's until the Court of Arbitration for Sport hear his hearing, and there's also been a counter hearing on the other side, and I'm signed up to their press releases. I've not had any information of when that's all going to be heard, and so it's just.
But he's supposed to ride this year, is that right?
Well, I mean.
No. Oh,
he's
okay,
banned.
So he's supposed to miss the whole of this.
As things stand, his ban will go to middle of 2021, June 2021.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Yeah, I'm a year out. Exactly. Sorry, I was thinking, that he was due to be able to ride any time now. But
so if
no,
the
you're
season
right.
got cancelled, it was a bit like, oh, actually, it was one of those strange situations. So, but I know you, Bradley, and I know I can say to you, oh, well, you must be preparing differently, but you're always ready. You're always fully fit. You're always ready to race. However, there is a possibility, as Neil said, of the ban extending for Andrea. And we know we can't ask you about that and your opinions on it. But is there a chip inside your head that changes the mindset a little bit of how you might approach things going into a first race, considering how well the tests apparently appear to have gone?
Yeah, certainly. And at the end of the day, from the moment that I heard it in December, I just decided, right, I need to prepare like I'm going into a full season. I obviously wasn't sure A sample would come in positive, but really you don't have, or there's no time to wait for a B sample and then a court hearing and so on and so forth. So basically, I think it was second week of December or just before Christmas. I think maybe 17th or something. And unfortunately we were at the Aprilia factory when the news came out. So that made for an awkward day, of course. But basically, I just decided from that moment is normally if I was preparing for a season, I would have started training by then anyway and going full out for the year. To be ready for April was not going to be a negative for me because I either was going to be ready to jump in MotoGP, I was going to be ready for my wildcards whenever they were going to happen, or I was going to be ready for Moto E. There's no such thing as being too ready, if that makes sense. And I was going to be more disappointed with myself if I wasn't ready to take the opportunity than if the opportunity didn't arise. So because now physically MotoGP is extremely demanding. The fact that I only raced 4 races last season, that kind of normal race fitness, slowly starts to disappear. I'm certainly not getting any younger. So yeah, basically decided to take those like 3-4 months and get back to the level that I was at when I was racing full time in GP. I knew my numbers and I knew what I kind of had to work towards. And yeah, that was kind of it. Just prepare, be ready, and see if the phone called.
But you're only 29 years old still. I mean, when I look at motorcycle racers' careers, certainly British riders over the years, it's almost between 26, 27 to 32 seems like the golden years of most riders' career. Obviously, everything happened really early for you. You got some great opportunities. You certainly made the most of them. Do you feel now, as Bradley Smith, 29 years old, right, now I'm going to show everybody, because sort of been written off a little bit, working my way down, having had, great opportunities, and it's the way MotoGP works. Do you think, last chance, nothing, because you have nothing to lose, I am gonna, surprise some people. I'm gonna shake things up. Is that your sort of mindset?
Yeah, I think so. And I honestly got kicked out of MotoGP when I was riding at my best. The fact that my teammate at the time, Paul Espargaro, has now been considered, let's say, for like factory HRC contract and a factory Ducati contract, that he didn't suddenly improve in the last 12 months that much between me and him that it was like, oh yeah, Brad's at home and he's in factory HRC. That just didn't happen. And when I bowed out of KTM at that time, okay, Paul did have some injuries from Brno onwards, but even prior to that, I was on his case like every weekend, just knocking on the door and giving him a real hard time. So I bowed out there, riding, for me, some of the best that I've ever ridden. And the thing is, people will never see or realize that, because it's like, well, when you're at Yamaha, you were finishing 5th or 6th and you got 6th in the world. Yeah, but there's stuff that you have to ride around. There's stuff that you learn. The bike's not on the same. So there's talents that came out during those 2 years on the orange bike that I kept on learning and kept on evolving. So I rolled out the best that I've ever ridden, and then I was at home. So I kind of had to sit and wait last year, and I didn't know whether it was ever going to come again. But certainly when I see this one coming, and yeah, this opportunity is a massive one for me. I don't feel old. Like you said, I am only 29. I don't feel old, and this new bike and this new project from Aprilia seems to give me the opportunity to have a good crack at this. So I'll be ready, and hopefully the bike is too.
As it made a step, that what we're hearing from the test, the problem is, and this might sound negative, I really like Aleix and I'm a fan. Good guy, I respect him, but he's almost too passionate. He's all or nothing. He's
all fire, isn't he? He is fire.
Yeah, fiery. So he has a good test, and everything about the bike's amazing. This is what I read when we've interviewed him. Then he has a bad test or a bad race, and it's a disaster. We've gone in the wrong direction. So I've lost a bit of faith in what he says. I don't sit there and think, okay, I'm confident now that Aprilia has made a huge step. So what's the truth? Because obviously I trust what you're going to say.
There's a lot of competitive bikes out there, and we have to have a look in terms of there's let's say 3 factory Hondas, 3 factory Ducatis, 4 factory KTMs, 3.5 factory Yamahas. So where do you want to sit in? Firstly, where do you want to sit in on any of that? And then 2 Suzukis as well. So to finish inside the top 10 right now, it's almost unrealistic to sit here and go, oh yeah, we're going to be able to do that because of where we've been. Now we've made a step forward, and we're certainly making progress. The guys have made progress on all sides of the chassis, and aerodynamics and weight and engine and everything, but we really don't know. And doing one lap in doing one lap in testing when it's cold in the morning, everything's a little bit fresher, a little bit easier. You're fully motivated. You've got the grit to kind of overcome maybe the weaknesses of the bike. That's kind of what everyone sees on the results. But until we turn up in Jerez and start riding in like 50, 55 degree track temperatures, and really seeing how our bike performs under a race situation, because better than anyone, you can sit behind someone, maybe you're 0.3, 0.4 quicker, but you can't pass them because every time you come off the corner, they have 300 horsepower and they power down the straight, they brake deep, they stop, and then you can't overtake them.
Yeah.
So that race dynamic is still a massive part of MotoGP, and that's still something that we don't know with the RS 2020. It is better than last year. It is feeling better, working better. But until we get it in a race scenario, it would be silly for me to go, oh yeah, it's going to be top 10 every time.
Yeah.
Points is the aim from round 1. So if we can walk away with 1 or 2 points, winner, and then build from there.
But I know, I agree with all what you're saying. You sat there, but I remember looking at a run that Aleix had done, and I'm like, Neil, you see these 1 laps, and and no one reads too much in testing, but there seemed to be a couple of decent runs put together, as if, well, that's it might have been able to do your 1 lap here and there, but was it able to maintain it during the race? We saw it a couple of times last year where that was possible, where both he and Andrea actually were able to maintain something throughout the race, and it looked like that consistency was there. In terms of the package as a whole, in terms of percentage improvements, what do you see? In terms of, are we now, this is twice as good as the last bike? Does that make sense? Or is it just...
Yeah.
Because it was big changes gone on, haven't they? Big changes have gone on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think on the 1 lap pace, maybe we've managed to pull out, 0.2, 0.3. But the biggest thing, and this was one of my main targets as a test rider, was managing to make the bike able to do that for the full race distance. And that's where I think that we've gained like the half second to 0.6. Not on every circuit, because sometimes there's not that massive drop, but certainly on difficult circuits for us from last season, as soon as the tire dropped, it would get very, very tricky. So I think that we've improved that. So that means basically I would say that we've cancelled out the improvement on the new tire. So we've gone with all the other factories, and then maybe we've got 0.3 a lap quicker over race distance compared to the other factories, because I think everyone improves 0.2 to 0.3 year by year. So 0.3 is still enough. It's still, let's say 7 to 9 seconds over a race distance, which now in MotoGP, that's massive. So if we've done that, then that was, in the right direction, and that's at the moment on base level. And then if we can improve from that, winner.
What's interesting with that is what you said earlier, though, also is how does that relate in the race scenario when you're behind a Ducati, for example? You know what I mean? That pulls 3 bike lengths on acceleration. and they've got good braking stability. So this, obviously it's a fast bike and they can get the thing stopped. And you're like, my God, I'm faster than this guy. Just go wide, move out the way.
Which is something
Obviously
actually, Suzuki had that kind of issues, didn't they, a couple of times where you'd actually think, oh, that bike's really working well, but I can't get past anything. So it's all very well. And I think Yamaha struggled a little bit with it. I think that's a good point too. And you're not going to find that, are you, until lap 20 in Jerez or whatever it is.
No.
Yeah,
when the track
exactly.
temperatures are 55, 60 degrees at a track which gets greasy at 40.
Yeah, it's going to be those ones that time will tell. And we have to wait at this point. It feels good. Everyone's happy. Everyone's patting each other on the back for the work. But until we get it in a race scenario and then sit down in the first debrief, then we don't know. What I'm excited about this year, though, is the whole back-to-back idea, because I'm really interested to see which factories and which riders are able to up their game from one weekend to the next, and crunch all those numbers from the first weekend and then roll out the second weekend and see how much that they can actually take that further forward. I'm interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, lead times, isn't it? That sometimes I know Ducati struggle with the lead times. I don't know what the case is necessarily with Aprilia. KTM often, you'll have seen, are producing lots of things, sometimes too many things that they're throwing left, right, and centre at you. It's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see how that does affect things. I just wanted to ask on that in terms of the fact that the engine allocation hadn't been set for Aprilia and for KTM, for example. Is that something you see was important, that you guys didn't have to set what you were going to be bringing to the original Qatar? Has that allowed a little bit of leeway with things being frozen, or nothing, because it's, have they been able to work at all?
Yeah, well, I think Aprilia was honest and said that we had two guys basically stripping and rebuilding engines in one of the office spaces in Sepang and in Qatar. So we were certainly trying to catch hot potatoes in those two ones, in terms of with the engine. So yeah, the fact that they've had a little bit more time to iron out some of the issues. Unfortunately, no time to make anything or produce anything because everything got locked down in Italy. They didn't actually. I thought that we could get ahead of the 8 ball, but the factories were all closed. So any outsourcing that we were doing or anything that we could even make internally just didn't get done. Aprilia was just closed doors, shutters down. So, but at least what we're homologating now, we know, and it's reliable enough to start the season with, and we just got to build from there.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. How do you feel looking back at your career? And I'm not saying like you'd talk to somebody like as if they'd retired. Let's hope the best is yet to come. And we know you're a long way off retiring. When you look back at your career, does it frustrate you that you've probably not got the credit you deserve? We look back over the last 20 years, British riders coming into Grand Prix racing and not doing too well. I mean, if you look at, I guess, Cal Crutchlow, you could argue, has done better than you in MotoGP, but you've had success in Moto, well, in 125s, obviously in Moto2, winning Grand Prix races. You've had lots of podiums throughout your career, podiums in MotoGP. You've beat Valentino Rossi in races. You've had an incredible career. And I feel quite strongly about this. I never feel like you've had the credit you deserve. And what's your take on that? Is it something that you ever think about? Or do you think, it's almost because, not to answer this for you, but because you didn't do BSB, you weren't a superbike guy. Do you know what I mean? It's like I just feel like you don't get the credit you deserve.
Everyone's going to have their opinion, and I'm certainly not going to be able to sway that. I think that in the world nowadays, expectation levels are always they're I'd like to think, though, Neil, that I was the person that changed people's perception and lifted people's perception of what British riders could do. So JT a little bit when obviously he was there, so I can't take too much credit from that. But basically, when I walked into Grand Prix, no one had been on a podium. No one was, scoring points. Chaz was there. Chaz was knocking on the door, and I think that Chaz could have been definitely that person. But it'd been so long since we'd seen anyone like that. So rocking up into 125s and winning GPs there and fighting for world championships there. Moto 2 probably didn't go quite as good, but Scott then kept kind of the expectations high because he was being on the podiums. And then obviously turning up inside of MotoGP, I just turned up at a time where JT had kind of been there for a couple of years, been on the podium and been in the top 6. Cow had also turned up and had a fantastic year. I think it was 2013, I think. No, 2012, where him and Dovizioso were kind of fighting for podiums every weekend. So when you turned up, it was like, okay, the expectation now is to be there. So I was only doing what people expected. So it just became the new norm. But yeah, it's...
But like, you finished 10th in your first MotoGP season in the championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're talking now on the satellite Yamaha. 10th last year was Frankie Morbidelli. So Frankie Morbidelli, who's obviously being talked about as
as a hero,
someone going through and doing all those things.
And me and Gav are in the pub, and somebody will go, "Don't rate Bradley Smith," and I'm like, "You what?" Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think he's got it. You're like, mate, have you got any idea how hard it is?
Yeah. But you got to remember, I came in the same year as Marc Marquez, and
but he's
that probably but that destroyed everything.
I know.
So, like I said, you got to have a look. JT was there before, and top 6 guy. So he was kind of the eye opener to everybody in terms of like, okay, British riders can do it, and even World Superbike riders can do it. Then Cal made the jump across, bit of a struggle the first year, but then he turned the switch and he was able to do it. Then you turned up with Marc Marquez, and Marc Marquez just blew everything out of the water. And, okay, he was on a factory Honda and this, that, and the other, but the dude just turned up and kicked ass. So me as a rookie, it was like, oh, okay, Brad's a rookie, but, look what Marc Marquez is doing, and look what Cal's done on that bike. And, there's just so many things that kind of doled it down. Now, but that's fine, because also my expectation wasn't to just do what Toseland had done or Crutchlow had done. My aspirations was get in here, figure it out, and kind of follow Mark, if that makes sense, because the guy was always that one step better in 125s and in Moto 2. Totally agree with that. But one step is from a guy that demolished everyone last season in the World Championship. One step back from that has to be that top 6 podium, sometimes person. And I think I was on the right trail for it, honestly. 2015, the season that I had, the points that I scored that year. But I just didn't get a factory contract. There was no factory contracts available to me. The support from Yamaha at that time isn't what it is now with Petronas, the fact that they can just buy themselves the factory bikes. So I just did the best that I could, and KTM was then the next option. And I believed in that project. I really thought that I was 26 at the time. I'll be here for 4 years, and in 4 years we'll be able to figure it out. And I think we'll see that, if they would have stuck, by me for those 4 years, that bike that they've produced this season is something extremely special. So we probably would have seen the best of Bradley Smith at 29 years old, but stories aren't written like fairy tales, and sometimes we have to jump around the place to try and prove that. But people have their opinions. It's down to me to kind of, I don't know, put something out there that changes that. And yes, us speaking on the podcast and probably at the pub, although I'm grateful for you doing it, you can say what you want, but actions speak louder. So it's in my hands now.
Do you...
I love it in the pub though. Don't I, Gav? When I've had a beer.
I mean, your visits to the pub are fleeting. It lasts about 15 minutes, then it's like, it's bedtime now, isn't it? That's what usually happens. One shandy.
No, but if I get somebody that comes up saying that, I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. Well,
you do get a little bit mouthy when you've had one too many top decks.
I love it. But can I just give you, just to back up what I'm saying, I want to give you an example of how I see it, right? So we've got the perfect example here, Scott Redding. So Scott Redding had 5 years in MotoGP and did not a bad job. It's difficult. He were on the wrong bikes at the wrong time, and it didn't quite work out for him, right? So your average British fan, right, was saying, get ready. I'm going to be honest. Scott Redding's shit.
Yeah.
That's the pub conversation. I'm in the pub.
I heard
Scott
it.
Redding's
Yeah.
Scott Redding's shit, and I'm going, whoa, no. He's not shit. He's 1.3 off Mark Marquez. Mark Marquez on a factory Honda, and probably the best motorcycle race I've ever seen. He's not shit. So Scott Redding goes to BSB and destroys everybody, and everybody's going, oh, Scott Redding's learned how to ride a bike. Scott Redding's, I tell you what, Scott Redding's great. I'm a massive Scott Redding fan now. And it's like, it's the same Scott Redding. He was riding just as fast last year in MotoGP, but that's the reality. I know I'm going off on one, but I just want people to understand how hard it is for British riders in MotoGP, British riders in the Grand Prix paddock in general. It's hard. It's competitive. There are no slow riders.
You don't take a sponsor with you. You don't get Repsol coming and saying we'd like another Spaniard in our factory Honda team. You don't. That just does not happen in the same kind of way, does it?
Exactly.
So you're up against it on another level.
Exactly. And just as an example, if you didn't want to be the Aprilia test rider, obviously it looks like you're going to race, and you decided, do you know what? I'll do BSB. Well, I'm putting money you'd win the championship in the first year, because you would, because your actual skill level's higher. It's it's incredible because you've been a Grand Prix rider all your life. That's how I see it. So there.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
that's Dave down the pub told, isn't it?
Yeah, bloody Dave.
Oh, Archie's going on again.
But that's no different than, for example, if you had a look at tennis, back, I remember watching Wimbledon when I was younger, and you'd watch Tim Hedman and Greg Rosetsky, and you'd just be like, why can't they make the final? And it's just a plain and simple, is they are phenomenal at what they did. You took them to, you took them to any kind of non-pro tour tournament, they would absolutely destroy everybody in 3 sets every single game, and just walk away with no problem at all. But because they were put up against, what we're talking, Federer still at that point, but I think even Sampras and those guys, Agassi, the fact that you put them up against those guys, it didn't mean that they were shit. It just meant that they were a tiny little bit off, and they were ranked 8th and 12th in the world. But no, they can't play. They'll never make it. They can't play. They're okay, all right, but I've done the same watching other sports. So
it's the British way, though, isn't it? It's that British way, that almost a little bit of pub mentality. Sat there going, bag of shit, then rubbish. I'll never make anything of himself. And it's like, mate, come on.
You need to go to more pubs with music in and things like that, Neil, or beer gardens. Much happier places.
Gav, I would happily go to the pub with you if you'd invite me from time to time.
Well, there's a reason why, because you get into arguments like this. I don't want to get involved in any of this sort of stuff.
I love an argument. I do.
He's just like that.
Oh. With my extra small t-shirt on,
with his beer
never fails. Never fails.
Bradley, are you enjoying riding still, or I was going to say, or is it a struggle, or do you enjoy the struggle? Does that make sense? You enjoyed the last few years where things might not have been as easy.
I mean, like there's ups and downs, right? So there's definitely days where I'm like, sack this off, but more times than not, it's just been good. I've enjoyed trying to figure it out, and that resonated me. I think it was when Valentino said it, and it's the enjoyment of trying to figure out with your group of guys how to make that motorcycle go as fast as possible, better than everybody else over the 25 laps of a race. There's something that's what makes it tick. And as hard as it was in KTM, and as hard as it was inside of Aprilia, being the test rider and stuff, everybody inside those projects are passionate. Everyone is trying their absolute hardest, and everyone's has the goal to get it better than it is. No one sat there going, oh, we're chuffed to bits being the last manufacturer, or we're chuffed to bits being 40 seconds behind the leader at the end of the race. So it doesn't matter. And it's probably even harder, because in somewhere like Repsol Honda, they're still trying as hard as everybody else, but at least they get the satisfaction of winning or being on the podium, or they get a bit of champagne sprayed on their clothes. We're the ones that have to sit inside the garage with moping faces, looking inside of the data while the national anthems are being played. So, but
that's hard as well, and
yeah,
that's hard. Wow.
It's not easy, and you've got to do that time and time again, day in, day out. We'd finish GPs, for example, on Sunday. The guys would pack everything. Then the truckies would then drive like Monday, get there Tuesday early in the morning. The boys would then fly, set up the garage on Tuesday, and then we'll have 3 days on track, all by ourselves in 50 degrees, down in Aragon. And we'd be there for 3 days. We wouldn't really have found anything that special, pack up everything, and then move on to the next race. And that constant slog was difficult, but there is something enjoyable about it. There is something that the team makes it what it is. And because you put in that much more effort, or because it hurts that much more on the hard times, it makes the good times a little bit better. So same thing, rolling out, last season, many times at the wildcards, doing all the testing that I was doing, it was humiliating, honestly, riding around and everyone going, well, what's Brad doing? And I was just being a test donkey, even at the Grand Prix. I just had to try this tire, try that tire, run in these clutch plates for the riders, make sure that this front brake system's working, because we had some air in it the day before, so just make sure that it's okay, so Andrea has it as a backup, ready for qualifying or something like that. And it's just stuff that it was just hard to do. But when the bike actually rolled out this season and made such a jump forward, you get all of that back and double. It's kind of like, okay, all of that shit's forgotten, and you go forward. So yeah, to answer that question, I still love it, still absolutely adore what I'm doing. The results wise would be nice. The easy thing to say is Moto E was nice. I was on the podium, but it didn't give me half the satisfaction of gutsing a top 10 or a top 12 across the line with a difficult bike. There is something about that struggle and putting yourselves up against the best people in the world. There's a lot more reward there than anything else.
God, it must have been hard jumping on that electric bike. You're testing on the MotoGP bike one day. You're on the electric bike. Was it really hard?
Completely differently, yeah.
Completely different, yeah.
Yeah, and more than anything, is like I had to do the electric bike, so I was trying to get the championship across the line because everyone expected me to be able to do it, right? So, but you didn't find yourself racing because it was like, I can't really go all out at this, because it always scared me, the weight that the bikes are.
Yeah.
Is one thing, but the second thing is I can't mess up the Aprilia project. So it was like, okay, take enough risk to get the job done, but not too much, to basically jeopardize what I was supposed to be doing. And that was the understanding, from everybody. So I just found myself sometimes riding at like 90, 95%, which just wasn't enough to get it done, because you had guys riding at 100%. So it was that really difficult balance of go fast, but not go fast. I'm like a Boris Johnson. Don't go fast, but don't go fast.
Don't go fast,
yeah.
But try and go fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was that guy. So it made it hard because I just found myself thinking all the time while I was riding, rather than being in the zone and completely forgetting everything. I just found myself thinking every corner, and it was a bit of a headache. But nevertheless, it was still good to do and taught me a few bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, and what's the future of it all? No, I just want to ask because, it's a lot of people, again, we talk about that bloke down the pub and he's going, well, they're a load of shit, aren't they, those electric bikes? So in terms
that was me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that was me.
Down the pub. I knew it was some idiot down the pub anyway. But
no, it wasn't.
We've got
I don't think the shit, by the way.
We've got to all think about it in a way that, this coronavirus has brought a lot of things into stark reality, hasn't it? Oh, Neil Hodgson's gone. Oh, he's moved position on our screen.
Sorry, my daughter was trying to FaceTime me.
Oh, right, okay. I was
my daughter was trying to FaceTime me. Sorry,
it confused everything. No, he's moved in my screen anyway. But we've got to be realistic about coronavirus and what it's made people think. Oh, there might be a green way forward. These kinds of things. So, future-wise of motoring and electric bikes, we've got to be looking at it, haven't we, Brad? In terms of where technology is going in a way.
Yeah, we have to move with the times, and at some point, combustion engines, or at least fossil fuel combustion engines, will come to an end. I get asked this: do I think electric's the future? And I don't. I think that it is. It's one of those things that transfers us across. So it's an easy go-to at the moment between like, okay, here's a combustion engine and then here's electric engine, and we're kind of ticking the boxes. Let's be honest, we're not really being green and healthy, because if you actually look into all the bits and pieces that goes into making it, it doesn't have that same implication. But I think at some point they'll find a different combustion. It would just be, we'll see MotoGP, but it'll just be with like a cleaner fuel of some sort. It's just no one seems to be that interested in going for it at the moment.
There's a lot of talk about hydrogen, isn't there? That kind of thing at the moment.
Yeah,
that kind of exchange.
Yeah. And there's a lot of science out there to prove that there's a lot of these things around. For some reason, well, at the end of the day, we all like noise. So, if you turn up and watch the MotoGP race at the track, it's not that good. Not going to lie to you. Any fans that are going to sit in the stands, it isn't that time.
The racing was good. The racing was actually good.
Yeah,
there was just no noise.
If you watched it on the TV, it was great. So if you had you guys, commentating in the background,
we are good.
Know that
we are good.
Exactly.
Very good.
Despite that, racing was good.
Yeah, but you didn't even realise that there weren't no noise. There was that bit of the whir going on, and the racing was exciting. Now, if you were expecting MotoGP noise into turn one and so on and so forth, it just wasn't there, and so people lose that little bit of like adrenaline and wow. But in terms of, if you watch it on TV, it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. Well, we loved it, didn't we?
Yeah, there were decent races, because it was just such a weird thing to see these big old heavy beasts being, battling quite close to each other, and obviously they're actually not too shabby in terms of top speeds and that kind of thing, really, considering how much weight and how much mass there were in those bikes. Anyway, it is obviously in some way. I think you're right. It's a stepping stone, isn't it, to another future of finding, and something needs to be done just to show willing, doesn't it? In terms of
Gav, are you ready? Are we ready for big questions, or is it too early?
Yeah, go on. Give the big questions in. I reckon they'll prompt something.
Just a shout out if anyone needs any insurance, by the way.
Oh my!
I just saw my Mackenzie Hodgson.
I'll tell you
insurance
what,
pen.
you're just in it for free pens. He's just showing a big logoed up pen into the camera for those.
No, I just saw it there and I was talking. What's interesting about this pen is it's really good quality, just like the insurance. Right, Bradley.
Bradley, wake up, Bradley, wake up.
Bradley, right. How it works
never ceases to amaze. Never ceases to amaze.
Brad, we've had a nice chat. I feel like we've got to know you a little bit better, but
right.
I have this little section near the end where they're called Neil Hodgson's very big questions.
Okay.
Whoa, this is.
I've just made that up, but so I feel like what I want.
Taking all the credit.
Yeah, obviously. What I want the people at home to get to know Bradley Smith better. Okay.
Oh wow.
We feel like you've been around forever. People sort of like, they just don't know. They want to know who Bradley Smith is. So I've written down a few questions, and hopefully after these questions, people will know you a little bit better. All right.
I mean, there's a bigger intro than there are a number of questions here.
Shut up, Gav. It's because you're really good.
It's exactly like me getting on this podcast. I'm like one of the toys from Toy Story 4. I've been around that long that I'm just put on the shelf and forgot about. But go
on. Bradley, we've had this conversation. We didn't forget about you. There was no pecking order. It's not the best or most popular. We just did it through people we knew.
Honestly, Brad. Honestly, it's like this. Honestly.
Yeah, he does protest too much, doesn't he?
This was yesterday, last night when I was leaving him a voice message, and I went, "Oh my God, I've said honestly too many times. Now I look like I'm lying." Right. So Bradley, you seem like the ultimate professional, and I want to know, and the people at home want to know: do you go to the pub? And if you do, what's your drink?
Oh, I do go to the pub, and Guinness normally is my
good,
is my drink.
Good call. Have you been over across the water? Have you been to Ireland and sampled a few?
Not to Dublin, but I was in Cork for an Irish wedding at the end of last year, and definitely sunk a few there.
It's like heaven, isn't it? Over there, it is. I absolutely love the stuff.
It makes the rest of the world rubbish.
That's the problem with it. Exactly. Do you know what's quite interesting? On the Isle of Man, it's good. It's not as good as Ireland, but they say the famous saying is it doesn't travel well. Obviously, the Isle of Man's really close. Genuinely, it tastes better on the Isle of Man than it does in England. There's one for you.
Yeah. There you go.
So Bradley, you've been out on the lash with me and Gav. Gav's been drinking shandies all night, so he's still sober. But me and you, we've had a bit too much to drink, and we've got the munchies. We're starving. You need to soak up some of that alcohol. What's your go-to, Bradley? Are you a kebab man? Are you going to get a McDonald's, Indian, KFC, fish and chips?
Cheesy chips.
Cheesy
chips. Yes, cheesy chips is the go.
Cheesy chips. Well, on the Isle of Man, it's a Manx delicacy, but it's chips, cheese, and gravy. You put gravy over the top. It all melts.
But you know that up this
sign me up.
Up towards the northeast, that's sexy chips. That's what it's called. And we've had that discussion
Oh
before.
yeah. Go and do the accent.
And sexy chips. You got any sexy chips, love? That what it always was. Sexy chips.
Yeah, I love it. Right,
wonderful.
My girlfriend. Bear in mind, me and my girlfriend Bradley, we've been together for 7 years today. Can you believe she's put up with me for 7 years? So it's our anniversary. But she says, poor woman. One of her sayings is, you can tell a person's personality by what they would cook you, like a 3-course meal. So me and Gav are coming round. I want to know what you are going to cook me and Gav. And you've got to be able to cook it. Don't just give us a MasterChef menu, like what you could cook us.
No, I'd be able to do it. So basically, I'd do a soup to start, because obviously that is a go-to. I will try. I'll use the bread machine to make you bread. So you'll have a fresh loaf, a good chunk of bread there. And that's normally the starter.
But what soup? Hang on, I need to know. I don't want soup. I just want to know what soup.
Probably it depends on the time of year. If it's summer, I'd probably go something like a tomato, something easy. And then if it was winter, something like a veg with a bit of pearl barley and stuff like that inside of it.
I'll tell you, I like that seasonal produce. Here he is.
Yeah, bloody hell. Didn't see that one coming. Go on.
And then for main course, I'll probably do a pie. I like pie.
Well, I mean, now you're talking my language, Bradley.
Okay. I've never seen Gav look so happy on this podcast.
The problem is, Gav, and I have to admit, I'm not sure I'll be able to do the full, completely round. It might just have to be a topped one, if that's all right.
That's not a pie.
Yeah.
No, shit. I've ruined that one already.
That's just a lid. That's a lid.
Yeah, that's not a pie. That's fake.
I'm not even going to ask what's in the pie, because I'll take anything. So
yeah, absolutely. And then desserts will be a crumble. So whichever one that you'd fancy, I'd ask ahead, and we'd do a crumble and custard.
Tell you what, that'll do. I'd happily go through that.
Good hearty dinner. That feels like a winter warmer.
That is a solid one. That is
very true British sort of. Yeah, you'd be happy with that. Right, next question. You've had quite a few teammates over the years. Who's been your best teammate?
Oh man. To be honest, they've all been very good. I can't say that I've had a bad one, because my list is
No, you thought of a bad one there. No, they've all been good.
Apart from Julian Simon, what an absolute the
Yeah.
loveliest man in motorcycling.
The problem is, like, so many times, because we're fighting for the championship, he'd fold his clothes all neat and tidily and put them like this, that, and the other. And it was his thing before he'd go out. And we'd always share the office. And I'd always be like, I'm just going to flipping mess up his clothes. Like, so when he comes back, you know, it's just all over the place and it will ruin his day. But it was so nice. You know, it'd always like, oh, have a good session or good luck or something like that before the session. Yeah. And you're like, mate, don't say that. I want to hate you. Like, but I think just because it was so many years and the relationship went through so many different stages, Paul Espargaro, like it started off as I hate this guy with a passion. And then we actually finished, you know, with a big hug out and, mate, I'm going to miss you. And you've been good for me for the last 5 years of my life. So yeah, that's probably the best one.
Oh, I like them. I like them sorts of teammates, them sorts of relationships, because basically he got the best out of you, and you probably got the best out of him. So you've worked well. Last question. It's not bike related. It's just I was just thinking about it last night when I was sat on bed. If you could have a superpower for the day, what would it be? Now I know it's you are.
I'm just gonna say fly.
Fly. Because Gav's always, because Gav's a perv, he's like X-ray vision. It's pathetic. You've always said that, haven't you? You've always said that, Gav, haven't you?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's,
You're such a stitch-up, Podgy. It's unbelievable. You just prepared this shit just to basically make everyone else feel like a knob.
I want Gav's a perv. I want the X-ray vision. I want the X-ray vision because Neil's going for invisibility and he's going to go in like girls' changing rooms. That's why. Yeah, really? So I can see you. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I love flying. So yeah, that would be awesome.
Oh, you're going to get your pilot's license then? Is that something?
I keep on. Yeah, exactly. I keep on talking about it, and I've done so probably for the last 10 years. But yeah, I just need to bite the bullet. Like when I actually have a few months on my hands, is bite the bullet and get it done, because I could be classed as a plane watcher, you know, because anytime I'm near like a little, like even just a grass airfield or something like that, not necessarily Heathrow Airport, but anytime that I'm near any of the private jet section, you know, or even just the airfields with the old aircraft and stuff, you know, I'm always there for 15, 20 minutes longer than I should be. So
with your anorak and your notebook.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. Binoculars.
Better than you, Gav. Gav's normally down at the train station. You love it. You've always had this fascination about trains, haven't you, Gav?
Yeah.
Just love it.
Just love a train. Just love a train. I just love getting trains to places. Yeah, that's my fascination with it all. Brilliant. Right. Well, Bradley, we better let you get back to. Is it a nice sunny day down in the south of France?
When is it not a nice sunny day down here? It's a lovely place over the road.
Piss off.
Well, hey, I'll have you know.
That's enough, Hodgie. Listen, you chose to go where you wanted to live, you know, for whatever reasons, and you chose the rain and cold and windiness. So.
Bradley just did a rude finger. That's so not on. I think he was saying I'm number one. I think that's.
I can't believe how it's foul language and everything, Gav. He's been really rude, hasn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't rude.
I can't believe I opened up with fucking tosser.
Well,
I'll tell you what,
it's not a family show.
If we ever do a best bits, that would be going in, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm expecting like we go into the holding area and we warm up a little bit and this, that, and the other. So I'm literally listening to Hodgie tell this story, and he just, you know, it wound me up yesterday, called me fat and chubby and this, that, and the other. And I just like listen in, and then I just, oh yeah, that fucking tosser. And then thinking, we're live, Bradley. Sorry for anyone listening in. Oh, here we fucking go.
Imagine when he does that every single day of your life when you're working. Imagine that, when he gets a dig in. And you actually are chubby. Imagine how that feels. Right, we better let you go. We've got to get back to our sunbathing in the, for me, sunbathing in the drizzle here in Leeds. So.
Oh, geez, he's just going to get on his sunbed.
Yeah, everyone's got some bed at home, surely. That's normal, isn't it?
He's got the spray tan machine in the bedroom.
flipping out that he's orange for a reason. That camera definitely on BT Sport has to change the colour in a little bit, because at times I'm like, now what's it shows turned up.
It's makeup. Well, no, I mean it's not makeup. It's not makeup. No.
Yeah, everyone else gets makeup artists. Hodgie goes, no, I'll do my own. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I know how I need to make myself look good. Right, we'll let you get going, Bradley. We can't wait to see you out on track again, actually, and see you racing. Maybe maybe the rest of the season, but whatever it is, we wish you the very best of luck. As always, we're right behind you, and I hope things go well. And
get
hopefully
stuck in,
we'll
Bradley.
get to see you at a race.
Give him hell.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see you out there soon.
Yeah, just tell me that if you do get to see me at a race, you'll come and speak to me, rather than ignoring me like you do the rest of the time.
Yeah, Gav. How
dare you? How dare you? You know that's
Cheers,
not the
fellas.
case. Cheers, Brad. You take care of yourself,
Brad.
mate.
Top man.
Cheers for
mate.
that.
Take it easy.
Oh, that's
enjoyed that.
Yeah, good to speak to Bradley. Do you know what? There's so many people have an opinion of Bradley, and I think you sort of said it there, the pub kind of opinion. But so many have an opinion of how good a rider he is and what sort of person he is. He's actually a good lad, is Bradley. Just someone who's always been very focused on his career. Someone who hasn't spent his youth in BSB and doing things. He was over in Spain doing the Spanish Championship. Part of the whole Grand Prix system from being 13, 14 years of age was Bradley. And he was picked out by Alberto Puch and the like back in the day because of his dedication. And he's still dedicated, but he's a good lad underneath it all, isn't he?
Yeah. And it's funny, 29 years old, Gav. Like, he talks about, like maybe, flying at some point, and it's like, mate, you're 29, you've got a lot of your life ahead of you. You can do whatever you want.
Do you know what? And he was always the example I use when we talk about people coming through at 15 and going through the system, going up, being fast-tracked into MotoGP quite quickly. And Bradley actually took it a bit longer than you might have thought, going through the system. But he was always my case of, you're going to get there, and if it doesn't work out in your first couple of years, your career could be not over, but you've hit your peak at 23, 24, that kind of thing. And actually, you've got a lot more to offer, haven't you? You are only just peaking as things go on. And it's just all these things about timing. There's no rush, is there, necessarily, to get people through to the top?
No, and he could potentially, obviously, everybody's different, but he might think, do you know what? Near the end of his career, I'll do BSB. I'll have a go at that. You know what I mean? He might do that. You never know. You'd have never said Scott Redding would have done it 3 years ago, would you?
No.
Right. So yeah. But I just hope where he's so right in what he says is, there's me going, give it to him, get stuck in. But it's so hard to get a top 10 nowadays. He names all the factory bikes. There's no slow riders. So Bradley could finish last, for example, at Jerez and ride the absolute wheels off that Aprilia. Just using that as an example. I'm not saying he will finish last, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's the reality.
It may well be different for him as well to actually have had the pre-season. Coming in at this part of the season, he is going to be starting. He's going to be on the bike. He knows he's going to have 2 races at it. And it's not popping in for one race halfway through the year when as he said, you're riding around testing little bits for the other 2 factory riders. You're there. And you are on one of the bikes, and you have to make it count. So, yeah, fingers crossed for Bradley. He will be out. Great to hear that he'll be there the first couple of races anyway. We are going to say goodbye now. I'm going to sign off from the podcast for today. Thank you once again to our guest, Bradley. Thanks to Neil Ogson for his input and insight. Basically, what we take out from the podcast today is, if you're in a pub, don't go and speak to Neil Hodgson. He'll only get into an argument with you. That's what I've taken from today.
Gav, I love you, man.
Right, you take care. Speak to you soon. And I don't know what you're saying. See you later. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.